Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sedex Virtual Asia Pacific Conference. My name is Walter Lin. I'm the Managing Director for Sedex in Asia, and together with my colleague in different regions of the Sedex, we will all welcome you to join the Sedex first virtual conference in Asia Pacific this year. And really thank you for your time to join the session today, and we hope you can enjoy that. Before I kick off the meeting, there are a few logistics I would like to share with all of you in here. So firstly, as this is a virtual conference, so we are kindly to ensure everyone, you put yourself on mute, so the other speakers or other panelists won't be able to hear any noise or backgrounds. And in the page in here, because this is an online communities, you will be able to browse the different menus in here. So you will be able to look at the different agendas, speakers, to really understanding what is going to share in today and tomorrow's session. But also there are quite a lot of useful response business related to resource like videos, documents are available in this website. So you can download. And this is information are provided by our exhibitors and also the sponsors. And if you join the session, if you click on the agenda menu of the community page, if you look at a particular session, you can just kindly click on the join session buttons, and then you can view the live streaming, and then you can hear the presentation and the panel discussions of each session. And also on the right-hand side, if you have any questions you would like to raise up, you just click on the Q&A session and copy your questions in here, and our colleague will be able to answer to you shortly. And also you'll be able to see what will be the other participants in your group as well. I think that's all I'd like to cover for my session. And now I'd like to welcome Mr. Simon McCall, who is the CEO of Sedex. Simon is joining us today in the very early morning in London. So Simon, we're over to you. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you so much, Walter, and good morning, everybody. From, as Walter says, a somewhat dark and dingy London this morning, but welcome. It's a real pleasure to open the Sedex APAC conference for 2020. I wish I could be with you in person as I have been in the past, but of course these are unusual and unprecedented times. So thank you so much for everyone who's joining online. It's a really important day today for us in terms of the topics and the issues that we're going to be discussing. It's a pretty packed agenda with some great speakers, but a lot of these topics are, of course, framed by the background of the COVID pandemic, and we'll be looking at many of the issues through the lens of how we as an industry and as a supply chain manage to continue to do the really important work of ethical sourcing within these difficult times. I mentioned how many had joined. I just want to say thank you. Over 1,000 people have registered to be part of today, and thank you for those of you who have joined us from the start. It just goes to show the huge power of the Sedex membership and the Sedex community as well. So thank you so much. Walter, we just bring some slides up. Apologies, everybody. I will do that right now.
Just about us a few seconds, everyone. So we'll be able to sharing the presentation. But Simon, if you be free, you can just share a little bit about what it's about the Sedex, because most of the audience, I don't think they are fully aware what we are doing. So once you introduce a little bit, and then we can play on the slide. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, let me just see if we can bring them up from here. That'll be 2 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you've got them, thank you. That's great,
yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Sorry for that, everybody, apologies for that. Firstly, can I just say a huge thank you to our sponsors. We couldn't be doing today without the really important support of everybody who's has chosen to sponsor or be a partner on this conference. Thank you firstly to our principal sponsor, Kima. We appreciate your continued support of Sedex and our conference, so thank you very much. Thanks also to our other promotional sponsors, ESTS, GSCS, Intertech and Leverage. Thank you for your important partnership today. And finally, thanks also to Benchmarks, who have been who are one of our online exhibitors as well. Thank you, everybody, and for coming and joining us and for participating and make some of these important topics happen. Next slide, please, Walter. Thank you also to our speakers. We have an incredible range of businesses, associations and government folk join us today from around the world. Thank you again to people. So we've got some great speeches such as the United Nations Global Compact, the ILO, we've got the Australian government joining us. As you can see, we have companies such as Walmart, Lego, Procter & Gamble, Coke, Fuji Xerox, as well as a number of industry associations, auditors, and other companies. So thank you again for joining in. Your participation is what makes this conference so great. As you can see, we have a really good spread of countries and regions joining us, from China, Australia, India, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, and so forth. It's a really, really strong participation, over 1,000 people. And we've got some hardy folk joining from the start from the United Kingdom as well. So this conference is being watched internationally as well. So thank you again for joining us. So this year we celebrate 16 years of the Sedex community. We have grown now to 60,000 members. We are now one of the world's largest ethical data exchange platforms. What that means is that we are exchanging data between buyers, suppliers, auditors, and other partners on the Sedex platform with 60,000 of you. I think that's an incredible number. We know we have nearly 40,000 audits a year uploaded onto the system, and as easily as many again in terms of other assessments on the platform. Our tools have evolved over the years to help members assess your ethical sourcing practices, your purchasing practices, and also how you supply to buyers. The tools have allowed businesses in our membership to manage the supply chain risks, but also really support great practices in terms of worker happiness, worker satisfaction, and ensuring that your sites and factories are productive, but are doing so in such a way that is looking after the workers in the community. We've supported learning and training through our e-learning platform, as well as working directly with many of you. We've also supported you with insights to help you to manage issues such as COVID, for example. So as a community, that insight and information has been shared, not just by Sedex, but also by many of you within the community. And that feedback and sharing that we get from you, it helps us and informs us in the way that we are able to deliver our services. So thank you for that. And together as a community, we reach 33 million people globally, which I think is incredible. Over 180 countries we have assessments and audits from. So it's an amazing number and just goes to show the power of what is a just fantastic community and membership. It'd be really difficult for me not to mention COVID-19, and whilst we don't want it to dominate today completely, we have all been impacted by this, and it has had a remarkable impact on right across the Sedex membership. We recently did some research and we looked and talked to many of our members and asked them to tell us what they were seeing and perceiving as a result of COVID, and we got back some very, very interesting results. 2/3 of our membership are expecting a decrease in revenue thanks to COVID, which is a frightening number. 43% of businesses, particularly those of you who are supplying and manufacturing, have struggled actually just to get raw materials or basic services that you need to then supply onwardly up the supply chain. Interestingly as well, 37% of you, so over 1/3 of you, have too many workers employed for the amount of work that's coming in. So if you're a supplier or you're a factory, then actually the challenge you have is actually having too many staff and not enough business. And we know that that can lead to workers being laid off and reduced hours. 1/3 of the businesses also face an increase in demand as well, conversely. So we see buyers actually seeing a massive increase in demand, which is then also rolling down to some of the suppliers. But actually we have the other problem, which is there's a labour shortage, and actually it's difficult to get staff to actually service that demand. And of course that creates a different sort of pressure, which is a pressure on workers to try and deliver goods and keep and fulfill contracts in order to supply that demand. And we know we've seen that, for example, in the supply of PPE equipment and protective equipment to cope with this virus. So it's a very mixed message, but what is really very clear from the data is COVID is significantly impacting many of you, both as buyers and suppliers. Thanks, Walter. Next slide. So we've looked at also from that data, what do we recommend that people should do in the supply chain? And we've taken a really good look at some of those actions. And I think the first one is it's really critical for buying companies to look at, as best as possible, the purchasing practices. So how you talk to your supply businesses in terms of creating orders and creating that demand. Working very closely with your partners and your supplier partners is really important to avoid either those huge spikes or also those huge dips or troughs in demand. Making sure that everybody, whether you're a buyer or a supplier, that your workers have protective equipment and are protected in their job. Making sure that everybody has safe working conditions in order that they can do their job safely. And we know we've seen challenges there, but also making sure that worker wages are paid, leave entitlement are managed, is managed well, particularly for workers who are isolating due to the virus. And of course, we all know the importance of not bringing the virus into factories, into our offices. So ensuring that workers are looked after such that they feel free to be able to rest, recuperate, and then come back to work. Obviously, helping your suppliers with better forecasting and planning is really important. Allowing them to plan ahead allows them to manage their workforce better and create fairer conditions. So that's absolutely vital that right across the supply chain, we try and do our best to forecast. And I know that that is a very difficult thing to do in these times at the moment. I mentioned earlier also, this is very much about working together, and this is about having a strong dialogue between buying businesses and supplying businesses in order that you can manage this pandemic. And what we know in talking to many of you is where you have been successful is where you've been talking and collaborating together to try and manage the situation. And we know that that buyers and suppliers that are having conversations are doing better than those that are not. And finally, working with our own governments, wherever you are around the world, to ensure that, firstly, we are protecting our workforce and making sure our supply chains are future-proof. Governments at the moment are doing the best they can to try and create policies and practices that work for everybody in tough times. Working collaboratively with them is really important. So what has Sedex done to respond to COVID-19 specifically? Well, we've done a few things I think that have been very well received, and I hope that many of you have found useful. The firstly is that we published quite early on some guidance for responding to the impact of COVID-19. We published a set of information that was available online to download and to read that helped many of you, I know, in thinking about how to plan for this pandemic and how to manage it. We introduced 3 new tools as a direct response to the pandemic. Firstly is direct worker reporting. And that, for those of you that don't know about that, is a capability that allows you to have a direct dialogue with workers on the ground at factory sites. Again, this requires close collaboration between buyers and suppliers, but it's a brand new automated system that allows workers to report on how they're feeling, how they're doing, and also, particularly helpful where you're making real progress. You can really see the results of that progress on the ground. And we launched a free trial of that for over 20,000 assessments in the spring this year. As many of you will know, we also changed our self-assessment questionnaire to handle COVID-specific issues, and we created a modular SAQ that would allow many of you to look at those issues, and that was extremely well received. But finally, and I think probably one of the biggest changes that we've made in our history is we have also worked with many of you and our audit partners to allow a virtual assessment to take place. So this, instead of having an auditor on site, actually you can go through the same process that you would do as if you were going through an audit, but do that virtually. And that uses tools such as video and phone interviews, as well as some existing technology from our SAQs to allow many of you to keep on assessing your supply partners to find out about progress. And that's been enormously well received, and take up has been incredible of that, both in terms of initial interest, but also in terms of the number of virtual assessments. And we're seeing that tripling every month at the moment, which is fantastic. I also want to look forward very quickly as well. We are doing a number of pieces of work to really significantly improve the service to many of you. We are significantly strengthening and changing our testing and audit methodology over the next 5 years to really work with many of you to the needs that we know you're going to have. And what we know is that this meta methodology will need to be more flexible, more modular, and it will need to be more specific to your industry verticals. And we know that actually there are issues, for example, in apparel or in the supply of food that are very different. And we want to make sure that SMETA can adapt to that. We will be building a new platform, a technology platform, and that work has already started to be much, much more flexible, to integrate into many of your platforms that you have, to be faster and a lot more friendly, particularly for those of you who are joining as suppliers. And we know that the onboarding of suppliers can be very challenging. We are completely going to be transforming that piece of work to make that so much easier. For the first time ever, we'll offer a marketplace for both buyers and suppliers to help you make quick and rapid sourcing decisions for those that have already done assessments and have done audits. We want to make the best of the suppliers show up at the top of a marketplace such that you can buy and choose your goods and services. On top of that, we'll have much better and stronger reporting capabilities so that you can really assess and analyze your supply chain properly. That will allow you to integrate that data into your own platforms and pull the data that you really need to do business. And finally, we will really double down on the amount of training, support and consultancy we offer many of you. We know that's something that you really value, and we want to make sure that you have options to work not just through our e-learning platform, but to have consultants and trainers come and work with you or your suppliers to make this whole journey considerably easier. So it's a very significant program for us, and I look forward very much to helping lead through that program and really deliver you value. I just want to finish on just how important the Asia Pacific region is to us as a business. We have 4 of our 6 global offices in the Asia Pacific region, and that supports over 27,000 Sedex members. I want to say a huge thanks to Walter, to Vishal and to Alex for leading that up in the region. Nearly 50% of our entire business is run or transacted in the Asia Pacific region, which is absolutely incredible. And we really value and we hugely value the input and the business that you bring both to Sedex and also to the community as a whole. The feedback and the power of the Asia Pacific region is felt globally throughout Sedex. So thank you, and thank you again for joining us. So just leave you on one last slide before handing back to Walter to say, supporting the Sedex membership is absolutely my #1 priority. I want to ensure that we are the best, the most flexible, the fairest, and the easiest to use platform and service out there for our ethical sourcing and responsible sourcing needs. In 2021, we will continue to offer you new features and capabilities, more than we've ever done before. Our new platform will start to come online at the back end of 2021, and I hope you will really feel the difference and the power of that. We want everybody throughout the world to have access to this platform and access to the power of the Sedex membership, and that we believe will help supply chains globally operate more ethically and fairly, and most importantly, look after the workers in our supply chain in order that they are happy, they are productive, and that as a membership, we can outwardly talk about the successes of working together. So with that, I shall hand back to Walter and Vishal and just say thank you again for joining us. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and I hope you really enjoy the content of today's conference.
Thank you so much, Simon, getting up so early in the morning to share the great presentation with us. Like Simon's mentioned, we got around 27,000 members in Asia Pacific region. It's a very big market for Sedex, and we can see the membership grows year by year. But definitely, this is a market which Respond Business is getting a very important agenda for everyone. There are so many opportunities there, but also the challenges there. So that's the reason why Simon and all the Sedex team are very keen to support our members in this journey. So we hope you can enjoy this session from the Simon's presentation. But if you have any particular questions on Simon's presentation, you can leave your questions on the Q&A tabs or reach out us by our email shortly. So next session will join around in less than 10 minutes time. And the next session we're talking about why Respond Business matters. And we do have a lot of very great speakers to talk about the very big picture about the Respond Business. So thank you again for Simon participation in this conversation, and thank you everyone. We're enjoying you for this